Hello folks, welcome to Edupedia World, and I am Abhinay Gupta. So today again we'll continue with the topic, the producer company. We have had few lectures on this topic. We have discussed the definitions, section 581A, the objects of a producer company, 581B, the incorporation, the procedure for the formation of a producer company, 581C, and then we have seen the basic difference between the producer company and the private company. So for the difference we had seen 11 points, the 11 areas of distinction between the private company and the public company, and those 11 areas were, the basic was the incorporation, then the difference in the management, the board of directors, the difference in the shareholders meeting, when will the first meeting be held, the limitations and stuff, the share capital being equity and preference, or what is the difference, the members' rights. Then we had the loans and investments, difference in the finance, accounts and audit. We had seen also the difference in the penalties, the difference in amalgamation, merger and divisions, the difference in the resolution of the dispute. There were some other miscellaneous provisions with respect to the striking out of the name. Then we had the reconversion of the company. So these were the basic distinctions between the private company and the producer company that we have seen. So today we'll move ahead with the new section, which is section 581D, which deals with the membership and the voting right of a producer company, right? So the basic condition of a membership with the producer company is that you should not have any business interest which is conflicting the business interest of the producer company, right? So if you want to be a member, you should not have any conflicting business interest. If you don't have a conflicting business interest, you are welcome to be a member. But if after being a member also you have any conflicting business interest, an interest of the business which is conflicting with the producer company, right, then that member will cease to be the member, right, and will be removed in accordance with the article of the producer company. Right? So the basic condition of being a member is you should not have a conflicting business interest. That is it. Right? You have no other condition. Right? Then next is the voting right. If we talk about the voting right, then there are three situations we have seen. There are three kinds of group who can form a producer company. Either it's 10 or more producers or individuals, or it can be 2 or more producer institution, or it can also be the combination of both. Right? So these are the three categories of members that you can have. Now in the case of producer institution, and when you have both, what will be the proportion of voting right? Right? So when there are only producers, every individual producer will have one single vote, irrespective of their patronage, irrespective of the shares they hold. Right? Then when you talk about the producer institution, right, it will be in the very first year, the producer institution will have their shareholding, have their voting right in proportion to the amount of shares they hold. For example, if there are two producer institutions, one holds 30% share and the other holds 70% share, then the voting right will be accordingly appropriated. Right? 2 is a bad example. If we take about 5 or 6, right, then you have at least some count of the vote. In case of 2 and 1 has 70, he wins the game. So that is what I'm talking about. It will be in proportion of the shareholding. But from the second year, you will not consider the shareholdings of the producer institution. You will see what contribution have that producer institution made in the previous financial year towards the growth of the producer company, or towards the object of the producer company. And when they have, when you have both the producer institution and the producers together, combined, clubbed, then again you come back to the single vote for each of them. For each of the producer, and the producer institution will give it the vote in proportion to the shares that it holds. Right? So that is all about section 581D, about membership and the voting right. I hope that is very clear with you. We move on to the next section, which is section 581F. Now this is a very, very, very important section. It deals with the memorandum of a producer company. Although you have been asked questions way back in 2005, but only when you know the memorandum is when you will know the variation or the change in the memorandum. Right? So when you change the memorandum, that is a very important topic. We have seen it has been asked 4 to 5 times, the amendment of memorandum. I guess 6 times, right? So now let's see section 581F, that is the memorandum of a producer company. So let us look at the memorandum in detail with respect to the individual clauses. So when we talk about the name clause, what does the name clause have to say for the producer company? The name clause says that every producer company will have to use the word producer company limited. Right? This shall be added as the last words in the name of the producer company. Right? The next we have is the registered office clause. Now what does registered office clause say? In your registered office clause, you will have to name all the states. Right? The memorandum will mention the name of all the states in which the registered office of the producer company is proposed to be situated. Because when you bring out the memorandum, you may or may not have the registered office. So wherever you propose, in whichever states, like that may be in multiple states, so you will have to name all the states in your registered office clause. Right? Moving on to the next clause, we have the object clause, and that is very important. We have already dealt with the object clause, the objects which is specified in section 581B. Right? So the producer company may have one or more object in its memorandum, but all of them will have to be among the 11 objects given in section 581B. Right? Then we have the liability clause. Then we have already seen in detail when we were discussing about the difference between the producer company and a private limited company. We know that the liability of the members in a producer company is limited by the memorandum. Right? So it has a limited liability ownership. Then we move on to the next clause, which is the capital clause. Again, we have seen this when we were talking about the differences, because in the private company, you can have both the equity shares and the preference shares for yourself. But in the case of producer company, you only deal in equity shares. Right? You don't have the concept of preference share in the case of the the producer company. So your memorandum will specify the amount of share capital with which the producer company is to be registered and the division into specific individual shares of fixed amount that will also be specified in the memorandum. Right? We move on to the next clause, which will be the directors clause. Right? So in the directors clause, the memorandum shall state the name, the address, the occupation, right, of the subscribers being the producers. And these subscribers, right, so who are the producers in the first case, shall be elected as the first directors of the producer company. So in the director clause, you write down the name of the subscribers of the memorandum, right, who are the producers actually, and then you give out the details like their name, their address, their occupation, etc. Right? The last clause that we have is the association clause. Now what is actually the association clause? So what do you specify in the association clause? In the association clause, you specify the